The soft chime above the entrance rings one more time as another family steps inside. Warm air wraps around them, carrying the faint perfume of polished wood, fresh fabric, and new leather shoes. Somewhere above, an elevator hums gently through the building. Nearby, the cash register sings its familiar metallic melody, followed by quiet laughter from behind a cosmetics counter. Sunlight pours through broad display windows, painting bright squares across the polished floor. Every reflection seems alive. Children pause to admire a toy train circling endlessly behind the glass. Their parents drift toward neatly arranged racks of dresses, crisp white shirts, and carefully folded sweaters, somewhere in the distance. Dishes clink inside the luncheonette while fresh coffee fills the air. Nothing feels rushed here. The store seems to breathe with the city itself. Every department has its own rhythm. Sales clerks know familiar faces by name. A tailor quietly measures another customer for a new suit. The wrapping counter folds crisp paper around birthday presents that will soon become treasured memories. In 1956, downtown department stores stand at the very center of American shopping life. That simple fact touches nearly every family that walks through these doors. Outside, buses stop just beyond the entrance. Office workers arrive during lunch. Young couples wander the aisles without buying much at all, simply enjoying the afternoon together. Grandparents hold little hands as they ride the escalator for no reason except the joy of moving upward toward another floor waiting to be explored. The building feels permanent. Its stone walls promise tomorrow will look exactly like today. You can almost believe these bright windows will glow forever. If you grew up in this era, you remember a place like this. Every polished counter, every smiling clerk, every carefully dressed window whispers the same comforting message: you belong here. For one beautiful moment before the world begins to change, the downtown department store is more than a place to shop. It is where a city comes together. It is where ordinary Saturdays quietly become lifelong memories. The story doesn't begin with the crowds or the bright display windows. It begins long before any child presses a nose against the glass, before the Christmas decorations sparkle beneath warm lights, before the first elevator carries excited shoppers toward another floor waiting to be explored. Every place that becomes part of our lives has a beginning, and every beginning carries a promise. Together, you and I are going to follow the entire life of this downtown department store, from the hopeful day its doors first open, through the years when every aisle feels full of possibility, and finally to the quiet moment when those same doors close for the last time. We'll watch generations pass through its entrances. Young couples become parents. Parents become grandparents. Children who once begged for one more ride on the escalator eventually return with children of their own, believing the building will always be waiting for them. For a while, they're right. This isn't simply the story of one store. It's the story of thousands of downtown department stores that once stood proudly across America, each serving as the heartbeat of its own community. Their names may differ, but the memories feel remarkably the same. As we move through the decades, you'll notice small changes that almost seem harmless at first. A new road here, a different shopping habit there. Nothing appears large enough to threaten a place so deeply woven into everyday life, yet those tiny changes slowly gather together. By the time we reach the end of this journey, the bright windows, the polished counters, the friendly greetings, and even the familiar echo of footsteps across the marble floor will have faded into silence. Only the memories remain. If you love bringing lost places back to life, consider subscribing to The Way We Were so you don't miss the next journey, because some places deserve to be remembered exactly as they were. Before we say goodbye, we first have to understand why everyone believed this place would last forever. And to do that, we have to return to the very beginning. The morning air still carries the scent of fresh brick and damp concrete. Workers brush the last traces of dust from broad display windows that seem almost too large to be real. New signs catch the sunlight for the first time. Inside, polished wood gleams beneath rows of glowing lights, untouched by years of footsteps that have not yet begun. The doors are still closed. Outside, people gather anyway. Some simply pause during their walk to work. Others bring children who are curious about the excitement spreading through downtown. Hats are tipped. Neighbors greet one another. There is a quiet feeling that something important is about to begin. When the doors finally swing open, the crowd does not rush. They step inside with the slow wonder usually reserved for churches, grand hotels, or train stations. Their voices soften almost without thinking. Every department promises something new. Every floor invites another small adventure. This building is more than a store. It is a promise made in brick, glass, and steel. In the years after the Second World War, many American downtowns invest in larger, brighter department stores to serve growing families and thriving communities. That single hope shapes countless city blocks across the country. You can almost feel the optimism in the air. America believes. Tomorrow will be bigger than today. The first shoppers wander through departments they have never seen gathered under one roof. Fine china sits only a short walk from sporting goods. Children's clothing hangs beside elegant evening dresses. Radios hum softly from one corner while kitchen mixers shine beneath bright lamps in another. Everything feels possible. Sales clerks stand proudly behind spotless counters, eager to welcome every customer as though they were inviting guests into their own homes. They straighten displays that need no straightening. They smooth ribbons already perfectly tied. Even the smallest purchase receives careful attention. A simple box of handkerchiefs is wrapped as thoughtfully as an expensive wedding gift, because that is how things are done here. Downstairs, the basement buzzes with activity long before most shoppers realize how much work happens behind the scenes. Freight elevators rise steadily. Delivery carts roll through quiet hallways. Stockrooms fill with neatly stacked boxes waiting for their moment on the sales floor. Above it all, managers walk the aisles with hopeful smiles. No one can know what lies decades ahead. They see only opportunity. Outside, downtown itself seems perfectly matched to this new arrival. Streetcars and buses bring people from every neighborhood. Office buildings empty at lunchtime. Banks, pharmacies, theaters, bakeries, and diners line nearby streets, each benefiting from the steady flow of visitors. The store becomes another thread woven into a much larger fabric. On Saturday mornings, families make a day of it. A father adjusts his tie before stepping inside. A mother carries a handwritten shopping list folded neatly into her purse. Children skip ahead, already hoping to visit the toy department before anyone remembers the errands that brought them there. Some leave with full shopping bags. Others leave carrying nothing at all except the memory of a pleasant afternoon. Either way, they plan to come back. The seasons begin to shape the store's personality. Spring fills the windows with pastel dresses and gardening tools. Summer brings picnic baskets, fans, and lightweight shirts. Autumn arrives with school shoes carefully lined in perfect rows. Then winter transforms everything into a glowing celebration of lights, ornaments, ribbons, and hope. The windows themselves become neighborhood events. People linger outside after dark just to admire the displays. Children point excitedly at moving figures tucked among snowy scenes. Couples slow their evening walks, letting the warm light spill across the sidewalk. The building is no longer simply new. It is becoming familiar. Every visit adds another memory. A first pair of polished Sunday shoes, a wedding registry carefully assembled one afternoon, a birthday gift hidden beneath layers of crisp wrapping paper. The first paycheck spent on a proper suit. Quiet moments like these settle gently into people's lives, often without them realizing it. Years later, they will remember the feeling long before they remember the purchase. If you grew up in this era, you remember a place like this. You remember how a single building could make an entire downtown feel alive. As the months become years, confidence grows stronger. The owners expand departments. More clerks join the staff. Elevators seem busier with every passing season. The sidewalks outside rarely feel empty. Looking around, it becomes almost impossible to imagine this grand building ever standing still. It has found its place, and so have the people who return again and again, believing they are watching the beginning of something that will last forever. For years, that belief feels completely true. The front doors never seem to stop moving. One family steps out carrying carefully wrapped packages just as another arrives, smiling beneath the wide marquee. The brass handles shine from thousands of welcoming hands. Somewhere overhead, the gentle hum of the escalator blends with cheerful conversation, while the scent of fresh coffee drifts through the air from the luncheonette. Upstairs, the building feels wonderfully alive. Every floor carries its own familiar soundtrack. You hear the soft rustle of dresses sliding across polished tracks, the quiet snap of a jewelry case opening, a child laughing somewhere in the toy department, the rhythmic tapping of a typewriter being demonstrated in housewares. None of these sounds compete with each other. Together, they become the heartbeat of downtown. This is the era everyone remembers. The department store has become far more than a place to buy things. It has become a place to spend time. People come even when they don't need anything at all. Friends agree to meet beneath the big clock near the entrance because everyone knows exactly where it is. Teenagers wander the aisles on Saturday afternoons, pretending to shop while secretly hoping to run into classmates. Young couples linger over pie and coffee before catching a movie just down the street. Grandparents proudly introduce grandchildren to clerks they've known for years. The store quietly stitches generations together. one small tradition becomes almost universal. Every Christmas season, families line up to visit Santa Claus inside the department store, turning an ordinary shopping trip into a treasured holiday ritual. The toy department becomes pure magic. Model trains wind through tiny snowy villages. Dolls blink their painted eyes from carefully arranged shelves. Board games promise rainy afternoons filled with laughter. Boys dream about bicycles standing proudly in neat rows. Girls imagine tea parties with beautifully dressed dolls. Parents smile, pretending not to notice the hopeful looks following every display. Children believe anything is possible here. The elevators deserve their own memories. A uniformed operator greets each passenger with a friendly smile before announcing every floor with practiced confidence. Small children stand on tiptoe, watching the glowing numbers climb one by one. Even adults enjoy the slow journey upward, because every stop reveals another world waiting just beyond the opening doors. Nothing feels ordinary. Every floor invites another discovery. The fashion department sparkles beneath warm lights. Mirrors stretch from floor to ceiling, reflecting elegant dresses and carefully tailored suits. Sales associates know fabrics by touch alone. They help customers find the perfect fit without hurry, offering quiet advice with genuine patience. Buying clothes feels personal. A new suit marks the beginning of a career. A wedding dress celebrates a future still waiting to unfold. A tiny pair of baby shoes quietly announces a growing family. The objects matter, but the moments matter even more. Downstairs, the fragrance counter welcomes shoppers long before they reach it. Crystal bottles catch the light like tiny jewels. A gentle mist of perfume lingers in the air, forever connecting certain scents with birthdays, anniversaries, and holiday mornings. Nearby, the cosmetic clerks greet regular customers by name. Those little conversations become part of the experience. Nobody is trying to rush anyone through the day. At the luncheonette, stools fill quickly during lunchtime. Office workers loosen their ties. Secretaries laugh together over slices of pie. Children proudly sip chocolate milk beside grilled cheese sandwiches while parents study shopping lists spread across the counter. Outside the windows, downtown continues its steady rhythm, but inside, time seems too slow, just enough for people to enjoy one another's company. Every department tells a different story. The furniture floor inspires dreams of first homes. The appliance section promises easier lives with every modern invention. The record department fills the air with familiar melodies drifting gently between customers who pause simply to listen. The bookstore invites quiet browsing on rainy afternoons. No one insists you buy anything. Sometimes looking is enough. Employees become as familiar as neighbors. The tailor remembers exactly how your father likes his jackets fitted. The woman wrapping gifts always ties the ribbon just a little more carefully than necessary. The shoe salesman remembers which growing child needed a larger size only months before. These relationships are never written down. They simply grow stronger with every visit. If you grew up in this era, you remember people like them. They weren't just employees. They became part of the rhythm of your life. Outside, the rest of downtown thrives alongside the store. The bakery sends sweet aromas onto the sidewalk every morning. The movie theater lights glow after sunset. The drugstore serves milkshakes to teenagers after school. Together, these places create a town center where almost everyone crosses paths sooner or later. The department store stands proudly at the heart of it all. During the holidays, it becomes something even greater. Window displays transform into miniature worlds. Snow falls gently over mechanical villages. Tiny trains circle glowing Christmas trees. Animated figures wave to children pressed against the glass, their breath leaving little clouds on cold winter evenings. Inside, decorations stretch from floor to ceiling. Choirs sing beneath balconies draped in evergreen garlands. Gift wrap rustles endlessly. The lines grow long, yet almost nobody seems to mind. Waiting becomes part of the celebration. Every visit creates another memory waiting quietly for the future. A little girl receives her first charm bracelet. A young soldier home on leave buys an engagement ring. Parents purchase school clothes every August from the same familiar department. Grandparents carefully choose birthday presents, knowing exactly which clerk can help. Years pass almost unnoticed. The building remains steady while lives change all around it. Children grow taller. Hair turns gray. New babies arrive. Old friends wave across crowded aisles. The store watches it all without saying a word. Standing there, surrounded by smiling faces and glowing lights, it feels impossible to imagine that anything could ever replace this place. Yet beyond the edges of downtown, change has already begun. At first, almost nobody notices. The Saturday morning feels familiar at first. The front doors still open with their gentle chime. The escalator still carries families from one floor to the next. The luncheonette still serves coffee in thick white cups, and the wrapping counter still folds every package with quiet care. If you arrive early enough, you might believe nothing has changed, but if you stay a little longer, you begin to notice the small differences. The crowds are just a little thinner, the conversations seem a little shorter, a few familiar faces are missing, the building hasn't changed. The world around it has. During the late 1950s and into the 1960s, suburban shopping centers begin drawing more families away from downtown, offering easier parking and stores closer to new neighborhoods. One quiet shift starts changing routines across America. It doesn't happen overnight, no single Saturday feels different enough to remember. Instead, change arrives one ordinary afternoon at a time. A young family buys a new house outside the city. The drive downtown suddenly feels longer than it once did. Parking, once a small inconvenience, becomes something to plan around. Traffic grows heavier. Children grow impatient in the back seat. A shopping trip that once feels like a pleasant outing now requires a little more effort. So one weekend, they try the new shopping center instead. Just this once, they tell themselves they'll come back downtown next month. Many do, some never do. Inside the department store, the clerks notice first. The tailor finishes his morning appointments earlier than usual. The woman at the glove counter straightens displays that already look perfect. The elevator operator waits a few extra moments before closing the doors, hoping one more shopper will hurry across the lobby. No one speaks about it. There seems no reason to. After all, Christmas is always busy. Back-to-school season still fills the aisles. Surely things will return to normal, but normal has quietly begun to drift away. The store responds the only way it knows how. New merchandise appears. Departments are rearranged. Bright signs promise sales that would once have been unnecessary. Display windows become larger and bolder, hoping to stop pedestrians in their tracks. The building is trying to keep pace with a changing America. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. Downtown itself begins to sound different. The buses still arrive, but not quite as full. Office workers still pass by at lunchtime, though many now eat closer to work before driving home to neighborhoods beyond the city. Some neighboring businesses close their doors. A small bookstore disappears. The family-owned bakery that scented the block every morning quietly retires. Its windows stay dark. People notice. Then slowly, they grow used to walking past them. That may be the saddest part of change. What feels shocking one year begins to feel ordinary the next. Inside, familiar traditions continue. Santa still listens patiently to children's Christmas wishes. Gift wrap still crinkles beneath careful hands. Wedding registries are still filled with hopeful dreams. The luncheonette still serves slices of pie beneath warm lights. Yet something invisible has shifted. The store no longer feels like the center of every story. It has become one destination among many. Teenagers now meet friends somewhere else. New shopping plazas offer wide parking lots, bright storefronts, and everything on a single level. Convenience quietly wins where tradition once did. Nobody intends to leave memories behind. Life simply becomes busier. The old routines begin slipping away without anyone making a conscious choice. Employees carry these changes with quiet dignity. Some have worked here for 20 years, others for 30. They continue greeting customers with the same warm smile, even as they recognize fewer familiar faces each season. The shoe salesman still kneels to help children try on new school shoes. Only now, there are fewer children waiting. The woman at the wrapping counter still ties every ribbon perfectly. Only now she finishes before closing time. The lunch counter grows quieter. Empty stools remain between customers. Conversations echo a little farther than they once did. Coffee stays hot a little longer before someone pours another cup. These are tiny moments, almost impossible to measure, yet together they tell the whole story. If you grew up in this era, you may remember watching a place like this grow quieter without understanding why. As the 1970s arrive, fashions change, music changes, cars become larger, television fills more evenings at home. America itself feels different. The department store tries to change with it. Modern signs replace older ones. Some departments shrink to make room for newer products. Bright carpeting covers floors that once gleamed with polished stone. Fresh paint hides years of wear. The updates help, but they cannot recreate the feeling people remember. Because the feeling never lived in the walls. It lived in the people. It lived in habits passed from one generation to the next. And those habits are changing. The biggest loss isn't measured in sales. It's measured in familiar faces that simply stop coming. A grandfather who always bought birthday gifts here is gone. A young family has moved to the suburbs. The office worker who ate lunch here every Thursday now works somewhere else. Each absence seems small. Together, they leave quiet spaces that no renovation can ever fill. The department store still stands proudly on its corner. Its windows are still polished. Its lights still glow each evening. But for the first time since opening day, the future no longer feels certain. The building waits. It keeps its doors open. It welcomes everyone exactly as it always has. Even as fewer people walk through them. For decades, it had stood at the center of everyday life. Now it begins the slow journey toward becoming a memory. The morning begins as it always has. A clerk unlocks the front doors before the sun has fully climbed above the rooftops. The familiar keys still turn with the same gentle click. The lights still flicker to life across every floor. Somewhere deep inside the building, the old freight elevator groans awake, sounding older than anyone remembers. For a moment, everything feels wonderfully familiar. Then the silence settles in. The aisles are wider than they used to seem, not because they have changed, but because fewer people fill them. The polished counters remain spotless. The display windows are beautifully arranged, yet there are long stretches where only quiet footsteps echo across the floor. The store is waiting. It has been waiting for years. By the 1980s, many of America's great downtown department stores are closing, relocating, or being absorbed by larger retail chains as shopping patterns continue moving away from traditional downtowns. No single announcement can fully explain what is happening. The story has already been unfolding for years. Now everyone can finally see it. Regular customers continue coming, almost out of loyalty as much as necessity. An elderly couple still buys anniversary gifts from the same jewelry counter. A retired schoolteacher visits the luncheonette every Wednesday, ordering the same cup of coffee she has enjoyed for decades. Parents who once came here as children now bring their own sons and daughters, hoping they might feel a little of the magic they remember. Sometimes they do. Sometimes the children simply ask why everything feels so quiet. The employees carry on with remarkable grace. Many have spent most of their working lives inside these walls. They know every creaking floorboard, every stubborn door, every window that catches the afternoon sun just a little differently in autumn. They are not simply leaving a job. They are slowly saying goodbye to a second home. One by one, familiar departments disappear. The record section shrinks. The furniture displays become smaller. Entire corners of the building stand empty behind temporary partitions, waiting for plans that never quite arrive. Each change feels practical. Together, they feel heartbreaking. Holiday seasons still bring decorations. Garlands still hang from the railings. Christmas music still drifts softly through the building. Santa still welcomes children with the same warm laugh. But the long lines are gone. Parents no longer arrive an hour early. The excitement that once spilled onto the sidewalks now fits comfortably inside the lobby. It is still beautiful, just quieter. The windows remain works of art. Employees spend hours arranging them exactly as they always have. Tiny winter villages sparkle beneath fresh artificial snow. Mechanical trains continue their endless circles. Children still stop to look. Only now, many are on their way to somewhere else. The windows become memories before they become destinations. Inside the break room, conversations change. Workers speak about retirement, about transfers, about opportunities at newer stores outside the city. No one wants to imagine this place closing, yet everyone quietly understands the possibility. Some avoid the subject altogether. Others walk the building during lunch breaks, lingering in departments where they spent decades helping strangers become friends. They remember first days, busy Saturdays. Christmas mornings that seemed almost too joyful to contain. The building holds all of it. Every laugh, every celebration, every ordinary afternoon that never seemed important until years later. If you grew up in this era, you remember how difficult it was to imagine these places ever disappearing. Then one day, the signs appear, a salon like the others, fixtures for sale, shelving marked with handwritten tags. Display cases that have stood in the same place for decades suddenly stand half empty. Customers walk more slowly now. Some buy things they never planned to purchase, not because they need them, because they want to carry home one final piece of a place that has quietly accompanied their lives. Employees wrap those last purchases with the same care they always have. The ribbons are still tied neatly. The paper is still folded perfectly. Even now, tradition matters. Outside, downtown keeps moving. Cars pass by. Traffic lights change from red to green. People hurry toward appointments. Life continues. But inside these walls, time seems to pause. The building is taking one long, gentle breath before the end. No dramatic farewell arrives. No grand ceremony. Only another evening. The lights grow dimmer floor by floor. A final customer thanks a clerk who has helped generations of families. The clerk smiles, just as they always have. The doors close. The familiar lock turns one last time. For the first time since opening day, no one waits to come in tomorrow. The building stands quietly beneath the evening sky. Its windows no longer glow. Its escalators rest. Its elevators fall silent. After decades of welcoming almost everyone in town, it has nothing left to sell. Only memories remain. There is no great crowd gathered outside. No marching band. No speeches. No dramatic farewell. The last day arrives almost the way every other day has arrived, quietly. The morning sun still washes across the display windows, even though there is very little left behind the glass. The familiar signs that once promised new arrivals and holiday celebrations have been taken down. The polished floors still reflect the light, but now they reflect mostly empty space. For the first time in decades, the building feels as though it is listening to itself. A few loyal customers come through the doors one final time. Some are looking for bargains. Others are looking for something much harder to carry home. One last memory. They wander slowly through departments that once seemed endless. They pause where the toy department used to buzz with excited children. They stop beside the luncheonette, now strangely quiet, remembering conversations that lasted far longer than the coffee. Some smile. Some grow unexpectedly emotional. It is difficult to explain why. After all, it is only a store. Yet somehow it has become part of birthdays, weddings, first jobs, Christmas mornings, anniversaries, and ordinary Saturdays that nobody realized would someday become precious. The employees understand this better than anyone. Many have already packed their lockers. A few photographs disappear into handbags. A favorite name badge slips into a coat pocket instead of being turned in. One clerk gently runs a hand across a wooden counter worn smooth by countless transactions. Another takes one slow walk through every floor before leaving, not because there is work left to do, but because saying goodbye to a place sometimes takes longer than locking the door. Outside, downtown barely pauses. The buses still arrive. The traffic lights continue their endless rhythm. People hurry past, thinking about work, dinner, tomorrow. Life rarely stops to mark the end of familiar places. Soon, construction fences appear. Perhaps the building is remodeled into offices. Perhaps another business moves inside. Perhaps the wrecking crews arrive instead. However it ends, something invisible disappears long before. The walls do, the feeling. The gentle certainty that this was where everyone eventually crossed paths. The place where neighbors became familiar faces, where children grew up one shopping trip at a time, where an ordinary afternoon could quietly become a lifelong memory. The silence that follows is unlike any silence the building has ever known. No elevator. No laughter drifting from the toy department. No wrapping paper crinkling beneath careful hands. Only stillness. And in that stillness, the downtown department store slips gently from everyday life into memory. Not with a crash, but with a whisper. Maybe you remember a place like this in your own town. It may not have looked exactly the same. The name above the entrance might have been different. The windows may have been larger or smaller. The luncheonette may have served a different slice of pie. But the feeling was remarkably familiar. There was a place where everyone seemed to meet without making plans. A place where shopping was only part of the reason for going. You went because it felt good to be there. You saw neighbors you hadn't expected to meet. You waved to someone across the aisle. You stopped for a cup of coffee that somehow turned into an hour-long conversation. Children learned patience while watching gift boxes wrapped with care. Parents quietly created traditions they never imagined their children would carry for the rest of their lives. Back then, we rarely thought about memories while we were making them. They were simply ordinary Saturdays, ordinary Christmas afternoons, ordinary trips to buy school shoes or a birthday present. Only years later do we realize those ordinary moments were quietly becoming the stories we tell for the rest of our lives. Places like this Remind us that a building is never just brick and glass, it becomes a witness. It watches first dates become engagements. It watches young parents become grandparents. It watches little children return years later with children of their own. The walls never speak, yet somehow they remember. Perhaps that's why losing a place can feel surprisingly personal. We aren't mourning the shelves or the display cases. We're mourning the version of ourselves that once walked those aisles without realizing time was moving so quickly. If you grew up in this era, you don't just remember the store, you remember who you were when you walked through its doors. And maybe that's why these places never completely disappear. The buildings may change, the signs may come down, the counters may be gone forever. But every time an old photograph appears, every time a familiar song drifts through the air, every time the scent of fresh coffee or new leather carries us backward for just a moment, the doors quietly open again. Some places don't survive, but they're never really gone. They live on in the quiet corners of our memory, waiting for something small to bring them back. A faded photograph tucked inside an old album, the sound of an elevator bell, the smell of polished wood, a Christmas ornament that somehow outlasted the store where it was first chosen. For a few moments, we're standing there again, walking, beneath glowing lights, listening to familiar voices. Believing, just as we once did, that places like this would always be here. Perhaps that's the real gift these old department stores leave behind. Not the things we carried home in shopping bags, but the moments we carried with us for the rest of our lives. Thank you for taking this journey back with me. If this story brought back a memory of a department store, a downtown street, or a place that meant something to you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Every memory shared helps keep these forgotten places alive a little longer. And if you enjoy bringing lost pieces of America's past back to life, consider subscribing to The Way We Were so you can join me on the next journey. Some places don't survive, but they're never really gone. So before you go, let me ask you one simple question. Which forgotten place should we bring back next?